Hey there, Rob Nieves with Skilled Pastor, where we offer practical advice for better ministry. Today, I want to share with you my story. If you followed this channel for a little bit, you'll know that it seemed like for a little while we kind of fell off the face of the earth, but we're back, and want to share a little bit of my story of how I actually left the church that I planted, and want to tell you everything that transpired, how it went, and at the end, if you stick around to the end, you'll see where we're at now and what God is doing with our lives. Now, I will tell you, this is really for that person that might be considering either leaving their church or maybe even leaving the ministry. So I want to just talk to you today, share my story, and hopefully it blesses and ministers to you and helps you as you think through some of the things that you're probably thinking through right now. So let me begin by telling you my story. It started in late 2019. We planted the church that we were pastoring at the time, and we decided towards the end of the year, things were going really well, actually. At that point, we were maybe about 8 years into ministry, and things were starting to pick up speed. Families were coming through, people were getting connected, people were serving. Everything seemed to be working out really great. And on the surface, man, things were popping. There was some things, minor things, not huge things, but some minor things lurking in the background. But nevertheless, on the outside, everything looked absolutely beautiful. Like, wow, this is great. Families coming together. God was doing some amazing things. But, as always, there's something always lurking underneath the surface. And there were some things in our church and some things even in our family that were happening underneath the surface at the end of 2019. Well, I get this call, like out of nowhere. I get this call from a relative. He pastors a church, and he was thinking about leaving the ministry, not leaving, but rather retiring within the next few years. And he thought, hey, it would be great for you to come down, serve under us, and when I'm ready to retire, you could take over this ministry. And their ministry was doing great. It was a bigger ministry than our church, and he was in full-time ministry at the time. I was still bivocational. So I thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity, although I really don't want to leave where I'm at because things are going really well here. But of course, little things again kind of lurking underneath. We said, let's just check it out. Let's find out what's going on. Now, this church was at a different state, and we decided, well, let's travel to that state and kind of see. And again, this is at the end of 2019. Let's see what's going on. Let's see if this may be something God might want for us, right? Maybe this is God opening a door, although we don't think we need a door right now, but let's check it out. So my wife and I traveled there. It was in a different state. We went there, and by the way, it's one of my favorite states. And so we went there, and when we went, of course, beautiful building, beautiful people. Everything was nice, like really nice. And what we had was nice, but that was nicer, to be honest, right? We loved where we were at. We loved our people, but the opportunity there seemed so much better. But as we met, I started getting the feeling that this wouldn't be the right decision for us. There were some things in the leadership that we saw, even in that short span time, that we thought, I don't think that this is good for us. But nevertheless, we met with them, met with their leadership team, and by the end of it all, they really wanted us to come down. So much so that they wanted us to come down like immediately. And this is the end of 2019. We have children in school, and we're thinking, well, we can't just pick up and go like that. We need a couple months. And not only that, but we need to figure out a transition for our church. But nevertheless, they insisted. And we thought, okay, we could probably do this in a little over a month. So we started thinking about this, but on our travel back on the flight, I remember just talking to my wife. Well, I wasn't talking to her, she was sleeping, but I was thinking and kind of meditating and thinking about this decision. I came up with a list of about 13 things. I don't know why 13, but 13 things as to reasons why we shouldn't leave. Some reasons were the leadership there. Some reasons were our church here. And maybe some even family decisions. So I remember waking up my wife kind of mid-flight, and maybe that was my fault. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I should have waited. But I woke her up and I'm like, hey, thinking about this, and I got this list, and I really don't think we should do this. I don't think we should make this move. But she thought, hey, listen, I know what you're saying, and I can see a lot of what you're saying. She says, but this is a great opportunity for you. This is really a good opportunity for you. You won't have to continue in bivocational, which bivocational, if you're doing it, God bless you. I'm there with you. It's tough. She says, in 2 years, you might be out of that. Maybe our church can continue to move on, and it's a really good opportunity for our family, the things that are going on. And again, there was some things going on at the church, but they weren't anything that we couldn't get past. We could do it, but she thought, you could probably be a help to this leadership team there. And you have some experience under your belt, and I think maybe you can help there. So thinking about it, I said, well, let's just see. Well, long story short, we kept talking over the phone for the next few days and thinking through this, talking to the leaders there at the other church, and thought we had it down packed. Finally decided, hey, before we fully commit, I need your word that these things are going to be in place, right? Some moving expenses, what salary was going to look like, what were things going to look like if we left our ministry here. So we finally concluded and came to some agreements, and we agreed, done deal, great. Then one day, this is right at the bitter end, I've already told our congregation, and that was hurtful to them. And I feel really bad about that. We lost some friends, some people that thought, man, why didn't you tell us first? Like, why did we have to hear it with the entire church? And I can understand that sentiment, but, also we needed to follow certain protocol, make sure that we tell our church board before we go around telling anyone else. But some people were really hurt by that, and I can understand it. But we told our church we're getting ready to go. And this is now, about a month and a half later. I'm having this one last conversation, and we are nailing down all our final moving arrangements. At this point, I have people in my house moving furniture out of my house, my current home. And I'm speaking to the pastor there, said, hey, these are the arrangements that we agreed upon. Yep, everything's good. No problem. Call such and such a person tomorrow. They're going to make sure the funds are there, and you're going to be good to go. Okay, no problem. Well, the next day, I called the person that I was supposed to call, and I said, hey, just want to let you know that this is happening, and I need these funds transferred to this person, blah, blah, blah. Details don't matter, but really, they were just supposed to commit to some things that they had committed to, follow through with some things they had committed to. They didn't follow through. And what happened was the person that I spoke to said, well, have you spoken to pastor yet? And I said, well, yeah, I spoke to him yesterday. They said, why don't you talk to him again today? I said, okay. Call him the next day. And mind you, this is a relative, okay? So I said, hey, so I wanted to call you. This is set, and I need these funds transferred. Spoke to the person you told me to call. They told me I should speak to you today. Well, there's a runaround now. And the conversation is going really different than the conversation went just a day ago when we met over the phone with witnesses in the room there. So we're on speakerphone. Other people are listening into this conversation. But all the plans suddenly shift. I don't know what happened from yesterday to today, but something happened. And today it's a completely different story. And by the end of that conversation, I told him, I can't believe you're doing this to me. I can't believe you're doing this to me. And I hung up. Essentially, what happened was all our plans fell through. All the follow-up that they were supposed to do didn't happen. They did not meet their commitments. And, to this day, people tell me, well, did you get it in writing? Did you have a contract? And I'll say, no, I didn't have a contract. It just didn't make sense for me to have a contract. I'm used to us being Christians, and I'm used to us being pastors. And this person was a relative. So I'm thinking, I really did not expect that someone would leave me hanging like this. I just resigned to my church. I'm days away from my last day at our church, and now you're going to break off the deal, and now things are different, like totally left out to dry. At this point, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go back to my church and say, hey guys, plans didn't work out, I guess I'm staying, yay? After everyone was hurt, after I hurt people. And to be honest with you, at that point, I felt like I can't stay here. If I stay here, it will feel like this is all about me. And I never wanted our church. I never wanted our church to be about me. I wanted people to know that I was there to serve them. And so even though our plans fell through, our family still moved. And we ended up covering the expenses that the church didn't cover. And now the bill was on us. And it's not like I had that money. I don't even know how we got the money, right? But we had it, and we're able to move and make that happen, make that transition. But now going there meant I was going to lose a good portion of my salary, even though I'm bivocational, but the church was covering some of our expenses. Then I was working for the rest of our expenses, but I was losing a big chunk by losing our church and moving to a new state. Well, we moved to the new state, and I didn't even want to tell my family. Well, my wife knew, obviously, but I didn't want to tell my kids and everything. They're already devastated about having to leave their friends and having to leave things that were familiar to them. Well, we move out. We finally, let me backtrack a little bit. On our way there, we stopped, we drove down to the state. It was about a day's journey, if you will, by car. So we stopped midway at my sister's house. And when we stopped at my sister's house, we stood there overnight. And the night that we were leaving, I had a panic attack, a really bad panic attack. I didn't describe it as that, but everyone who saw me going through it says, yeah, that was a panic attack. That was bad. You were in really bad shape. And I can tell you, I do remember the feeling. I felt like I was driving our family to its doom, that we were moving to this new state, and it was just over for us. And I didn't think I was ever going to do ministry again. I thought this was it. In fact, I thought I had failed God so bad that God fired me from ministry. Like you're no good. Like this is not good. And man, it was such a tough journey to this new life that we were going to have. And it's disappointing because again, part of me really wanted to live there. And but we moved, and even through that panic attack, when we finally arrived, I shared with my family, my children, the news that, hey, we're not going to be a ministry anymore. This is what happened. And that was just one devastating blow after another for my kids. It was just really heart-wrenching and really difficult. Well, we're out there, and you remember 2020, pretty big year. So the end of 2019, we made the decision to leave. Early 2020, we're in this new place. And while we're there, thankfully, my regular job or non-ministry job is remote, so I could continue working from this new state. So that wasn't a problem, and I thank the Lord for that. But we were, do we find ministry? What do we do now? We need to supplement this income somehow. And if you might remember, 2020, everything shut down. And if you were trying to look for ministry, it made it that much harder. So we really didn't land in ministry in this new place. We had some potentials, but we weren't feeling God moving us in those directions. So we really didn't find anything, but God, by His grace, provided for our family. So I'm grateful for that. Well, our church here was now thinking and saying, hey, they found a new pastor, and man, I'll never forget. I was able to watch the inauguration service of the new pastor online. Live stream. That was the worst. I remember being home alone, and I think my wife did that on purpose. I remember being home alone, and I want to get emotional now. Man, I cried so much that day because I thought that was it. That was the final blow. That's it. Never doing ministry again. And anytime I thought that I would do ministry again, that I could or that I couldn't do ministry again, man, it was so hard. And sorry for the tears in here because I didn't expect that part. But we pressed forward and just believed whatever God has for us, right? And I really did become really comfortable with the idea that I don't think I'm doing ministry again. And I'm just going to have to be okay with that. And I'm going to have to settle in that. And so we kept going. They had a new pastor at the new church, at our church. And I was grateful for that the church was going to be able to move forward and keep going. And even though 2020 was a hard year, God provided. So that was good for them. And I was ready to move forward. Well, as it would happen, the pastor that was at our former church, he was also bivocational, and just frankly, his day job, if you will, was a very busy place for him, and it was a lot. Things didn't work out between him and the congregation, and at about a year later, almost to the day, the church calls us and they said, hey, we don't have a pastor, and we know that you don't have a ministry. Would you consider coming back? Would I consider coming back? I've only considered it every day since I left. Of course, I didn't tell him that, but I said, yeah, sure. But I said, I want everything to be done right. And I put some signs before the Lord. I said, God, I don't want to be back if you don't want me back. And I said, Lord, this is all up to you. And I asked for certain signs, and I made it difficult. I'm not going to lie. I made it difficult because part of me didn't want to come back. Part of me said, hey, I'm not going to lie. Not being in ministry is kind of nice too, right? So I want to be in ministry. I want to do God's will, but not having to worry about some of the things that pastors have to worry about, it's kind of nice too. But I put those things before the Lord, and God just opened up one door after another, and He made a way for us to get back. And so we are back at the church that we planted, but we were gone for about a year. It was almost like a year sabbatical, forced sabbatical. And it's ironic because before that happened, I had spoken to my wife and I said, I think we need a sabbatical this year. We were starting to think about a sabbatical, and maybe that's what we should have done rather than just go into a new place of ministry. Well, I say all this to say, hey, listen, in church life, if you're a pastor, if you're a minister, in church life, there are people that are going to do you wrong. There are people that are going to promise you things and not follow through with it. And there's a lot of potential for hurt. If you are considering leaving your ministry, some things I want you to learn from my experience is that when you leave a ministry, it hurts. It doesn't just hurt you, it can potentially hurt people in your church. So please consider this. Please consider how you leave. Please consider the fact that you're leaving, and just keep that in mind. I think how you leave is important. Try and have a transition plan months in advance if possible. And even the transition plan should be someone that the church really can gravitate to. Make this as smooth a transition as possible. Some of my mistakes were I left too quickly. Yeah, legally I left within the 30 days that my pastoral call says. So I gave maybe about 6 weeks, but if I had to have done it all again, I certainly would have taken out more time. Be praying about it. If I had to do it over again, this might sound bad, and maybe if you're a church board member, you may not like this, but I think you should talk to some of your closest friends. I think you should meet with some of them, and in all confidence, just share with them what's going on. Of course, if you give this enough time, then there's time to think through how you're going to do this. And when you share with your board, let them know, hey, there's certain people that are closer to us at the church that we've informed them of this because we have a pretty close friendship and we didn't want to hurt that. And hopefully they're understanding of that. But I would have, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have spoken to some of those friends and let them in on just the confidentiality aspect that I really need them to keep this in confidence. I would have given ourselves more time. I would have had more of a transition plan. And I would have had some things in writing, for sure. I would have had some things in writing before I even said anything to anyone. I would have made sure. Now, I don't know that having it in writing would make it any easier or any better, or will make it so that they absolutely commit to their word and follow up on their word. I don't know any of that. But what I can tell you is that at the end of the day, you will be able to show them this is the document you signed and these are the things you agreed with. Where it goes from there, that's between you, God, and them. But I would say have some things in writing for sure. So take your time, have a transition plan, make sure you get things in writing, and consider speaking to some of your closest friends because you don't want to ruin that. I'll tell you what, some of the things that happened to us were that we lost some of those friendships. They stuck around in the church until we left, but those friendships have never been the same. The truth be told, those people ended up leaving the church, and some of them landed in other churches. Others, frankly, I don't know that they're in another church at this moment. So, of course, that's not on us. That's on them. But we can do as pastors who love them. Let's try to do the best that we can. So I wanted to share that experience, not as gossip, but just as a way of teaching you and so that you could learn something from my mistake there. And I promise, or I hope I never make that mistake again. I'm committed to not leaving for a good long time. So they'll have to kick me out of here, I think, right? To be honest, I'll just say, listen, love the people that you serve, continue to love them with all you've got, and be sure that you're doing things in thoughtful ways. So just wanted to share that experience with you. I hope this helps. If you're considering the ministry, I want you to know that I'm praying for you. And listen, if you enjoyed this video, would you give me a quick like? It's really easy. It's like right there. Just give me that quick like, subscribe to this channel, and click on the bell notification so you never miss one of our videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.